So I went to school with the Parkers, and phenomenal people. I absolutely love them. Kim, I love her voice. She's an amazing singer. Nikki Parker, phenomenal woman. However, there was a lot with her and Professor Ogelvee, and I'm going to talk about that as I experienced it. Um, from the get-go, it seemed like she wanted her some Professor Ogelvee, and I kind of had to pull her to the side and say, "Hey, Miss Parker, maybe you should go for someone who's not going to get fired for dating you. That would be nice." Of course, she looked at me like she was going to knock the taste out of my mouth, but I said, "Listen." So anyway, she had this guy named Kenny who dated her on a dare, but ended up loving her, and then she broke off the engagement. Then she has a night with Professor Ogelvee after he's fired from SMC. And even then, that still looked like a terrible decision because he was still a professor. He was still an authority. He was still in authority. And they had their night together. Later on, she was at the altar with Johnnie, who I think Johnnie was in New York for a little while. Then he went to Detroit and wrote a few hits for some local stars. And then he moved on over to California. I think he went to culinary school because a lot of that just kind of tuckered him out. And Nikki was a caterer too. So that would have been a great little thing. But the fact that Nikki was always sniffing after Professor Ogelvee, I kind of thought like, even though I was invited to the wedding and I went for the support because I love me some Nikki Parker, when she said no to Johnnie and yes to Professor Ogelvee, I was thinking, well, I hope we can at least have the buffet because I guess that's the only good thing that's coming out of all this. So people there was a huge uproar of clapping when that happened. Professor was like, "I've been a fool." But I'm like, yeah, you've been a fool, and this has all the energy of, "I don't want you, but I'll be damned if somebody else has you." So, you know what? That's why I was pissed off when Professor Ogelvee and Nikki decided to say "I do" to each other. Now, I know that Nikki had a charm school, and I know that they since broke off because I think like Niles and Daphne from Frasier, they liked the idea of each other. They didn't really like each other. They liked the idea of each other. And then once they finally stepped into the reality of each other, it was curtains. So she went to a charm school, and I think Professor Ogelvee is in Texas somewhere. And then Johnnie, I don't know. I think he's still in. Oh yeah, he still is in California. He was working at one of Gordon Ramsay's shops, and like every so often, I'll reach out to him when I'm out near SMC, which ended up merging with another college. But you know what? When I'm out there near campus and whatever, every couple of years, I'll drop in and say hey, and just cut it up with him and see how he's doing. So, see you later. That was the way I experienced Nikki Parker and Professor Ogelvee.